Starting off with what I already own and have in my possession, I have an ancient Celestron Power Seeker 114, which I understand is a god-awful telescope, but I bought it about 40 years ago. Um, I know that the tripod is awful. I know the equatorial mount is awful. And I know that the telescope itself for photography is bad because it's too long and wobbles in the wind. So there's that. I did build a homemade Dobsonian mount for it. So stability has been taken care of, but a Dobsonian homemade won't track. So I'm still limited to point and shoot. What I'm looking at is what you were just discussing. I'm looking at getting the S50. I've heard some real good things about that. What I've read about it, you just talked now, you seem to think it's a good idea, a worthwhile investment to get. I'm curious now as to what you're talking about adding an equatorial mount to it, though. How does that work?
Well, it's not really an equatorial mount, it's just a wedge. So you would use a standard tripod or any kind of, something stable tripod. And then you can get a small equatorial wedge that basically is just because the sea star itself will track.
Right.
There you go. Stan is showing you. Bring it closer. There you go. It
Oh, I
just
can't.
Legs are in the way.
so he has basically like a pan head,
Oh, I see it. Yeah, I see it now. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
and that allows you to set the what match it to your latitude, and then you can move in azimuth to basically get fine alignment.
Okay. So if I'm getting the S50, I should also get a wedge.
So unless you find them used, the S50
Yeah.
is discontinued and no longer available for some reason.
Right.
There's no known reason why it's discontinued, but you, nobody seems to go buy it. Like all
They
the
did.
sites just say unavailable.
I think they did announce the Pro at NEAF, Scott.
Yeah,
Oh,
they did.
okay, there we go.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, they announced the what?
They announced the upgrade to the S50, which is going to be the S50 Pro. It's going to have the same camera sensor in it that the S30 Pro has. So the camera will be a better camera than what's in the original S50, if you will.
Is that available now or
No,
shortly?
it's not.
No, no,
And I don't think they've given a release date yet. What my experience in the short time I've been doing this is they talk this stuff up and then the product's not available for 6 months. But Scott's right, you could probably pick up one used. And my guess is if you didn't want to wait, that some people probably will start unloading their original S50s because they're going to be trying to upgrade to the Pro.
Okay, I'll keep my.
I'm sorry.
I was going to say thank you for the information. I'll keep my eye out for one.
yeah, there was there Scott, I agree with you. When I was doing the clinic last month, I did a little updates of my slides for the current EAA options, and a number of the websites did not have the S50 available, but there were still some places that were selling them. And it might have been like Woodland Hills, which is telescope.net. They might have been one, or even High Point Scientific may have had some in stock. I forget right now which one it was, but out of the four places I looked, three of them did not have it, and one of them still had them in stock. Um, and then I heard what you heard, Brett, that there were a couple YouTube videos about interviewing the different people at NEAF. And,
Yeah.
and the one interview was with the founder of ZWO. And he actually showed the interviewer some pictures he had taken with his prototype S50 Pro.
Right.
When they did that last year at NEAF, in the 2025 NEAF, they kind of had behind the scenes the S30 Pro. they had enough where some people had taken some pictures with it. They had a couple loaners for some of the review or like some of the reviewers and kind of influencers. That
Right.
wound up getting released for ordering right before the new year, and they started shipping in February. So it was literally 10 months later. Now, one other option is something like the S30 Pro. That is currently $599. They've announced a price increase from on May 1st of $699. But they're actually taking orders. If you were to buy one now, they would lock the price in. But after May 1st, it's going up to $699. I wound up getting one when I had seen that review from last year's NEAF that they were going to do this, and I wound up waiting, put in an order when they first released it. They had like an intro price of $550, and I waited 2.5 months or whatever it was, and then it came in, and I continue to be blown away by it. It's an incredible amount of fun. It's got the the larger sensor that Brett's talking about that they're going to use in the S50. It's a little wider focal length, so shorter, I should say, wider field of view. It's 160 millimeter focal length. And it has a wide field camera, so you can do things like Milky Way shots, star trail shots. I haven't heard, Brett, in the interview that I saw with the founder of ZWO, he didn't specifically mention if they were adding a wide field camera to that. Do you know if that was talked about?
I didn't see that interview, but I
S50.
thought they were.
Okay.
Can anybody else confirm that? But I think that's right, Gary.
So the S50 would be, I guess it would still be around 250 millimeter focal length, somewhere in that range with
I
the
would
wide
think so.
field you're saying?
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah.
So that could be an option, Frank. It's
The
Is-
you said the S30 Pro would
yeah.
be a good alternative to the S50.
I'm just saying it's something to consider. I mean,
Okay.
it depends what I'm going to be doing a little talk on stretching using the GHS type of stretch. The image that I'm going to be using for the demo is from the S30 Pro.
Is that this Friday you're going to do that, the meeting?
No, it's like tonight.
Oh, tonight. Okay.
Tonight I'm going to do it. Yeah, when we're done this sort of beginning session, I'm
Well,
going
Joe,
to go to that.
is the S50 that the club has out right now?
It's out.
Okay.
It's out for a while. We just took possession of an S30 Pro, though. So we have an S30, we have an S30 Pro. They really quite popular. But they are like, if someone wants to, use one, if they just, drop me a line, a text or an email, I'll put them on
Would
the
that-
list. But
would that be available Friday and could I pick it up?
the S30 Pro,
Yes.
the S30 Pro is going out on Friday. It's coming in on Friday and going out on Friday.
Okay.
But I can put you on the list and we can get it to you without too much trouble.
How about the S30, the plain S30?
The S30? We'll have to check. I think that's coming in on Friday. So yeah, you might be able to pick up the S30.
Okay.
I'll look into that for you. Okay,
Okay, I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
sure.
Thanks,
Now-
Jeff, for bringing that up. Those
Yeah.
for everyone, those are always good options, right? That the club has the loaner equipment.
Yeah.
Joe, does either the S30 or the S30 Pro, do we have a wedge for them?
I made a wedge for the 50. It was this 3/8 inch. It's a 3/8 inch. It'll work. I just kind of cobbled one together. myself just for people that want to use it, and almost no one really has been wanting to use it, but I can make it available. You know, it's not the ZWO product. It's just something that I had. I had a ZWO mount that I'm not using. So I just, made like an offset just to balance whatever, C-Star product or dwarf product you'd want to put on it. So I do have that available.
Okay, if I could borrow whatever you have on Friday, I would appreciate that.
Okay, I'll have to get back to you on that. Because everything is out right now. So
I believe it, yeah.
yeah.
Gary, I have a question. I have the S50 and I set that up for, whatever, a nebula or a galaxy. And then I also have finally the S30 Pro showed up. So I have that now and I play with that in the meantime, might do star trails or something like that. What's the S50 Pro have that I wouldn't have between the S30 Pro and the S50? I have the wide field with the S30 Pro.
Yeah, I mean, from what I understand, from what he was saying, they basically did the same thing. If you look at the S30 to the S30 Pro, the S30 was a triplet refractor at 150 millimeter focal length, f4.9, or so say roughly f5. But I think it's actually f4.9. So 150 millimeter f4.9 triplet refractor, and it had a 1920 by 1080 sensor on that, so camera in terms of pixels. They made it the Pro by adding a element to the refractor to flatten the field. So it went from 150 millimeter to 160 millimeter. So it went from like a 30 millimeter diameter f5.49 to f5.1. So it was 10 millimeter difference in focal length because they added an extra element to get the field flatter. And I can attest, based on I didn't do a kind of a side-by-side comparison with the 50, but I looked at the S30. I had borrowed the clubs before I had bought the S30 Pro. And the stars on the S30 Pro are very, very sharp corner to corner. I mean, for a couple, for a $550 thing or a $600 thing now, I was really impressed with the optics. Very, very flat field. And then they also improved the wide field camera. They reduced the focal length, so they made it's like a 60-something degree field of view now, I think, the wide field camera. So they basically quadrupled the size of the sensor. They went with the ASI, like the 585 sensor or camera. So it's 3840 by 2160. So it's twice the pixels in each direction. So it's 4 times the surface area, and only 10 millimeters longer. So it's effectively like twice the field of view, a little bit shy of twice the field of view. So it was a significant change. From what he was saying, they did the same kind of thing with the 50 Pro. He didn't get into too much. The founder of ZWO didn't get into too many of the specifics, I guess, because it's not out yet. Like he said, memory costs are really high right now. So like he didn't commit how much RAM it's going to have built in. And I know with the S30 Pro, when they first announced it at NEAF last year in 2025, it was supposed to have 256 gig of internal RAM. It came out with 128. And I'm sure that was just because that's how the chips had gone up that much in price. Most of those chips are the same pin out, the same footprint. They just dropped a smaller chip in to keep the cost kind of what they were expecting to sell it for. They didn't say if they added an element to make it a quadruplet rather than a triplet. I'm guessing they might have. I'm not sure how good the stars are on the S50. I know you guys who have them can comment better on that, better on that topic than I can. So he was a little bit tight-lipped, yet he did turn around and show the person pictures that he had taken with it and stuff like that. So it's definitely in the works. So I would think that if you have an S30 Pro,
Mhm.
you would use that for your wider field stuff with the bigger sensor. And the fact that you have an S50, keep that for your tighter field of view stuff.
Right. Yeah, stuff I would have to do mosaics with the S50. I can use the S30 Pro and get them all in the same
Exactly.
frame and get 4 times or 8 times the the subs. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it even has a, I haven't tried it yet, but it even has like a, I think they call it like 8X mode or something, where it actually does the mosaics behind the scenes and makes it a really wide field of view for the S30 Pro.
Yeah.
Guessing those same features, since that's in the software, those same features will carry over to the S50 Pro. I don't know how much they're going to retrofit those features back to the S50 and the S30. Because I'm guessing they're counting on that larger sensor to help them with the overlap and help them with the framing. But time will tell. People have been asking for that. Why don't they fold some of those newer fancy features back to the regular line? So it might just be a matter of priorities to get the current products out, or a matter of time before they get around to it.
Gary, did he happen to say what the estimated selling price is going to be?
No, nothing. And people have been speculating all over the place, but they're just wags.
Yeah.
People were saying that they thought the S30 Pro was going to be $700-800 when before it came out, and it wound up coming out at $600. So it wound up coming out less than than the guesstimates that I heard. But now they're pumping it up to 700, and I'm guessing it might be because of memory costs, because they've been going through the roof. Memory has been going through the roof. So, yeah. No, I think you're probably okay, Ed, with your setup, especially since you got the S30 Pro. Have you had a chance to use it yet?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Clear nights, no sleep. Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, I'll get the S50 set up on a deep space object, and then I'll go find some stuff for the 30. Yeah, I've been real happy with the results from both of them. Yeah, I just can't imagine the S50 Pro, being necessary with the combination of the two. But that would be interesting. I would have the 50 available only if the 50 Pro proves necessary.
Right.
With what you just said about the wide angle in the 50 Pro and the narrower angle in 30, or vice versa, the wide
Yeah,
angle on the 30, or
vice
the wide
versa.
angle on the 30 and a narrower angle, would the 30 be capable of taking more pinpoint accuracy, deep space?
You have to zoom in, and I think you lose some stuff. I mean, supposedly you should have the same resolution. It's a lot, it's a larger, physically, quadruple sized chip, right? But on your image with the 50, you'll have a large, galaxy. You'll have a much smaller image on the 30. But you can fit all the Andromeda in on the 30 Pro. And you can get all of the, you can see the Flame Nebula and on Orion, you can get the Horsehead Nebula and the Flame Nebula all in one frame. And that's pretty nice.
On which camera?
On the S30 Pro.
30?
Yeah. Yeah. With the 50, I have to take individual
Right,
nebula.
but if you just wanted to zoom in on one object, if you didn't want both of them in the frame, is the
Right.
30 capable of zooming in on one?
That I don't.
You would crop it. You would basically crop it, but you're very undersampled, so you're not going to get the resolution
Okay.
that you're going to get with the 50. But neither of them is going to take a good image of really small galaxies. If you're doing a large galaxy like M33 or 31 or something, the 50 is going to have a hard time fitting all of M31 in because it's so big. M33 would fit into 50. The 30 would wind up fitting M31 easily because it has a wider field of view. But if you were shooting like a small galaxy, like some of the smaller Messier objects like in Leo or something, like M60 or something like that, you're not going to get really good resolution from either of them.
Okay.
But we'll get better resolution from the 50 because it has a longer focal length.
Okay.
So
there-
other guys should chime in too, because Steve has been shooting. Steve Haas has been shooting a lot of stuff with an S30. Tom has done a lot with his S50, including some of the larger galaxies. So it really depends what you want to shoot. You like if you're shooting nebulosity and stuff like that, like large, like the something like the North American Nebula or the Pelican or the California Nebula, then the S30 Pro would get you all of that in one field of view. The S50 would get you most of those in one field of view, and some of them would be all of it. Probably the Pelican would fit in at 250 millimeters.
Okay.
Are you interested in more galaxies or more nebula kind of stuff, or what?
Right now, I'm just beginning, so I'm actually just looking to see what is out there and what is available to me to get. I wouldn't mind getting a little bit of everything. I'm kind of greedy, but I may have to pull back, see what happens.
Yeah. I don't know. Any other thoughts from users, from people who have used them?
Well, I just started playing around. I'm in possession of the club's new S30 Pro, actually. I've had it for about 10 days, and I'm going to bring it to the meeting on Friday because it's going to be passed on. I was just giving it a test run, and I have some pictures later on I'll show as comparisons, and um, it's it's interesting. I mean, it's really going to shine on like the larger like was said, the Andromeda Galaxy, large nebula areas. I imagine it's going to be a gas in Sagittarius when that comes around, and like all around the Cygnus area is going to be fantastic. And like we talked about the Orion area and all. Um, the but you can get groups. I did shoot the Leo triplet with it, and I shot a section of the Como Virgo group, kind of centered on NGC. What's it, 4438, or basically the around the Cat's Eye area in there, where all the clusters are, where that bottom of the chain is. And you can I'll show you what that looked like, because it's a wider field of view. The galaxies are small, but it's still interesting.
Yeah.
But whereas the S50 would be much better on the small medium galaxies because you can get a lot more detail on them. But you can't get the field of view like on the nebula. I shot the Rosette with the S50 and I got just the inner part of it, just not even quite the whole circle part, I don't think, on it. Whereas the S30, I have an unusual shot I'm going to show too. It's only a a 5 minute exposure in twilight because it was setting and my tree line was there. So you guys, you can see the trees in the picture, but the rosette is above it in 5 minutes, and I could tweak it out a bit, and you get an idea what the size of the field of view is. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, yeah.
So they complement each other pretty well.
I just dropped a link in the chat. It's the Andromeda Galaxy framed by both the S30 and the S50. So you can just see side by side. It's hard to get context, but that website's really handy to play around and get a feel for framing things.
Oh yeah, the one that field of view.
Astronomy tools, yeah, I dropped it in.
Yeah, good. Thanks.
Perennial favorite.
Yeah, we went through that last month with when we were going through Tom Skrovanak had talked about setting up a system, and we wound up using that a lot. Thanks for putting that up there. I also, Tom, you just reminded me. I did a quick test shot of M8182 with the S30 Pro. It's not processed. This is just out of the C Star itself. But let me just share this real quick. So that
Happens to shoot one of those too. Yeah, you get an idea of the field of view. You get those other side galaxies in the lower right, the lower left. There you see some, and
yes. So this is here, let me make it full screen. And if you zoom in, you can see there's not a ton of resolution, but it's still decent. And this is out of the system. It doesn't have the gradient correction, even the built-in gradient correction. This is just the basic stack out of the system. So
That's the, that's
even
the,
it looks like you smoothed that picture too, right, Gary?
this is, I was actually
Yeah.
on that one. I was testing the noise reduction thing in it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I wish there was a slider on that. That'd be so good. You know, where
Oh
you could
yeah.
adjust the
Yeah.
amount because it's a little heavy-handed
This
um,
one,
out of the
this one looks
box.
smooth too. Anyway,
but that's a 30 Pro.
that's a 30 Pro of
Okay.
M8182, which aren't, you know, they're not tiny galaxies, but they're not like M31 either, M33.
Yeah, big ones.
Yeah. Cool. So any other questions before we move on to I'm going to do a short presentation on the generalized hyperbolic stretch. And then we'll have time to show images and do that because I know people have some time. You just said you have some stuff, and
I just want to show you some comparisons that might be interesting.
any other questions then before we move on? Okay, and we'll have time for Q&A. You know, it's not the end of the end of the thing by any stretch. So I think I'm going to move this here. No, maybe not. I'll wait till I minimize it, then I'll move the little thing out of the way. So I'm going to go back to sharing that main screen. Let me get this out of the way. And I want to show what I'm sharing. Okay. So right now you should see just my desktop with the heart and soul on it.
Yep.
Okay. So let me get over to Okay. So, oh, and it's showing it over there. Come on. I don't want it over there. Okay. I'm going to start this again, except share the other screen. There we go. Okay, so now you should see
There
that.
it is. Yep.
Okay. I'll just move stuff over there. So, where am I? Okay, so tonight we're going to do a back to basics presentation on using the Generalized Hyperbolic Stretch tool. We'll then go back to just sort of the basic session of doing a show and tell of newly acquired images or recently acquired or processed images, any new equipment, techniques, anything like that that people want to talk about. In terms of upcoming meetings, let me get this out of the way. So at the May meeting on May 27th, Tom Nolasco is going to do a brief WaveSharp demo for solar system image processing. When we had the indoor clinics, Tom had talked about using Registax and using WaveSharp, and he did a comparison of those. Well, WaveSharp is a program that is newer than Registax and also seems to have some nice features and some reasonable support. So Tom has volunteered to do a demonstration of that software program next month. For June and July and August, they're still open meetings. If anyone has a topic they would like to talk about, I welcome with open arms any kind of presentation that people want to do. And I think the way it works out really well. I mean, we occasionally we'll have feature presentations like what Prasad did on his spectroheliograph. But in general, I think it's really valuable to just have short, 20-minute, 25-minute presentations, 15-minute presentations. Kind of what even what we did last month with Nelson's presentation. So if anyone has something that they would like to present, just let me know and I'll include it on the agenda. Timing is flexible. All of these months are open, June, July, August. In September, Nico Carver is still planning to do a talk. We don't know what the topic is at this point, but I'm sure he'll come up with something really interesting.
I'll see him when I'm down in Chile.
Oh, right. Yeah, right. Yeah, you can pressure him a little bit while he's running between cameras, running between his five cameras.
That works.
In October, November, December. So the year's pretty wide open. I'll probably do a couple more back to basics things, maybe one or two of those, but I'd really like to encourage you guys to put a little thing together. It could even just be a very informal thing, just like if you're comparing a couple, like Tom, what you're talking about doing, comparing the S30 Pro with the S50, even something like that. We're all eager to learn, and this is a great audience and a great way to share things. So next month will be, as I said, the WaveSharp demo by Tom, and then in September we're going to have a presentation by Nico Carver. So I'm going to close that. I'm going to move my folders over while I can see them. Oh, the other thing I want to do is just throw on the chat, I'm going to just throw a couple links. These are in my talk, but instead of having to copy them down or take screenshots, I'm just going to send those now. Let me get this out of the way. I'm going to close that now. Okay, and then as far as the talk for tonight, because I know it's going to go to the other screen. Okay, so Tonight, we're going to talk about the Generalized Hyperbolic Stretch, or GHS. So we'll review do a brief review of the histogram, or levels in Photoshop, or mid-tone transfer function in Siril, and the curves transformation tool. This is a presentation that I gave back in October, I believe it was, of last year, and I'll show you the link. And the link actually in one of those chat things, that's the link that'll bring you right to that presentation. So if somebody wants to review that, the link is coming up and also is in the chat. So we're going to talk about what is the generalized hyperbolic stretch and how do you work with it, and then also a brief demonstration of using it in PixInsight. So as I mentioned, I gave a talk on the histogram and on curves back in October of 2025. So if you were to follow that URL, that'll bring you right to that presentation. It's 17 minutes and roughly 8 seconds into that recording. So as a quick review, because all of these things, all of these stretching tools are based on really manipulations of a histogram. So if you think of them in their fundamental level, they're manipulating the distribution of intensities within the data to make the image more representative to what we want to see. So if you think about what is a histogram, so I have here, can you see my cursor on the screen? Yeah, I can
Yep.
see. Yeah. So if you look at this image here, this is a Photoshop picture, a composite picture. It has a big gray background, then it has a black square in the upper left corner, a dark gray square, or rectangle, I should say, sort of in the middle, and then a small white square that's in the kind of lower left. Those objects are represented by these 4 spikes on the histogram. Excuse me. So the histogram is showing the distribution of values. In this case, these are 8-bit data values. So it's from 0, which is black. Black is 0. To 255, which is white. And then this medium-sized dark gray rectangle is shown by this spike here. That's kind of not quite black, not quite middle gray, certainly not white. And then the whole background is shown by this big spike here. So the whole background is the largest number of pixel values that have that color gray in them. So the histogram is showing the distribution of values of those different intensities. So the black rectangle is that many values. This dark gray one is that many values. This lighter gray one is that many values, and it's normalized to the most values, highest number of values. That's very typical on a histogram. It'll be normalized to the largest quantity of a certain data value. And then the white rectangle is very small, and that's that little blip there. Here, I should show it on it. It should be pointing to this. So you can see it here. Black, dark gray, middle gray, white. And these different stretching tools are ways to manipulate that distribution. So if you look at the PixInsight histogram transformation process, is what they call it, These are your red, green, your red, blue, and green channels. So here's RGB. This is black. This is white. This here would be linear. This is a straight transfer, so nothing's changing. This curve here is the input curve. This is the output. So when the distribution curve is a straight line from black to white, it means that nothing has happened to that data. These three controls are what affect that curve. So this is the black point. This is, you could think of it as kind of the middle gray or the midpoint, and this is your white point. So if we move those around, let's take the black point, and I'm going to move the black point from black, from value 0 to value, and this gets 0.85. So it's going to be up a little bit. You can see that the curve, what it did was it effectively shifted the curve to the left. It made it darker. So I took lighter values of data and I made them black. That's effectively shifting that curve to the left to make them black. Does this make sense? Okay. I see some heads nodding, yes. In Siril, they call it the midtone transfer function. Transformation, MTF. Same kind of controls. There's a black control, a middle control, and a white control. If you look at something like the curves transformation tool, this is a more generalized way, or a more, I should say, free-form way of affecting that distribution of values. So it can also be used to adjust other types of things like saturation, hue, chrominance, things like that. My experience is that the curves transformation tool is best used on an image that already has been stretched to some extent, like by using the histogram that we just reviewed. So for a curve, I'm going to look at the same kind of image. So I have this image here, which is a black, the same one we looked at before, the black, the dark gray, middle gray, and then white. This is a linear transformation, which means nothing has happened to that curve. If I pull a point down, if you look here, if I pull a point down here towards the darker gray region and then push up in the brighter region, you can see that middle, that light gray has gotten lighter, because that would be sitting around here. I've pushed that up, and you can see that this middle gray has got, or the dark gray, I should say, has got.
Millie.
Yeah. Oh, never mind. You can see that that's gotten darker. So here we have a curve, hence the name of the tool, the curves tool, representing that sort of transfer function between black and white. And you can put extra points in here. You can move them around. You can do pretty much whatever you want with this, to the point where you sort of break the image. Or you can do well-behaved things like this, like a slight S curve is a very good way of improving the contrast in an image. And you can see that that's essentially what it's done. Unfortunately, you can't see the black here, but that doesn't matter, because black just got a little blacker, which is still black. It's still a 0 value. 0 won't go below 0. If I pulled this all the way down, it would make this gray very black. So that's a quick review of those tools. Here's the same thing done with an actual image. So this is the North America Nebula without stars. I'm pulling the contrast up on that by pulling this slider down, pulling the dark slider down, pushing the lighter values up. This is the distribution curve for that image. You can also increase, I shouldn't say improve, but increase the concentration, or the saturation, I meant to say, the density of those kind of the the intensity of those values. So that would be before the saturation increase. That's after the saturation. Very, very subtle curve. That's done by picking saturation. This is U, this is chrominance and stuff like that. So those are those tools that we talked about before. There's a full explanation of how they work in that link that I put in the chat and also showed in that early slide. And I'm going to show that same slide again. This is the Siril version of the curves transformation tool. Very, very similar controls. You can add a point wherever you want and then push and pull it up and down. I mean, you can even take a point and slide it left and right too. You don't have to, it'll make the curve whatever you want just by squidgying those points around. And you can add points, like I said, and you can subtract points too. If you have too many points, you can click on one and then delete it. So again, there's a full explanation of this with more detail and more discussion about that North American nebula, showing live how it works. So with that as the background in terms of the distribution of values, let's discuss the generalized hyperbolic stretch. So the GHS tool is a very versatile way for transforming these pixel values on an image to improve that representation. So you're basically modifying the underlying data. You're redistributing the underlying data to make it more visually pleasing and to bring out information that you wouldn't be able to see without that manipulation. You can use the GHS tool on linear data, meaning unstretched data. But similar to curves, I find it's better to use GHS on an image that's already been stretched to some extent. And again, in my experience, pre-stretching the image using histogram transformation allows for a lot more precise control when you're using tools like GHS, when you're using tools like curves, even like the ArcSine H stretch. They will work with linear data, but I think you'll find it easier to use and with more control if you pre-stretch it a little bit. And I'm going to show you that when we do the little demo. So here's an example of the PixInsight. Here's an example of the PixInsight GHS. They call it a process in PixInsight. I'm going to refer to it generically as a tool. And this is Siril's version. You can see they're very similar controls. There's a stretch factor. There's a thing called local intensity. So stretch factor, local intensity, your symmetry point, your shadow protection, your highlight protection. Here it's protect shadows, protect highlights. And here they flip the words around, but the same controls. You can look at your RGB channels individually. You can turn on the grid, turn off the grid, do various things like that. I tend to use GHS once my image is color calibrated. And like I said, slightly pre-stretched. So you would have a histogram somewhere in this range rather than pegged over near the black point because the data has not been pre-stretched. And we're going to talk about what these controls do. So the main controls are this send it to symmetry point, what mode it's in, and also the things we just talked about, the stretch factor, local intensity, symmetry, and then your protection points. Those are your main controls. If you default the process in PixInsight by clicking this little icon here, this display is what you'll see. The transformation type is generalized hyperbolic. The mode is RGB, so it affects all channels equally. And the stretch is 0, local intensity is 0, symmetry is 0, and then there's no highlight protection and no shadow protection. So that's the default state. This is way too busy, but bear with it. If you look at the actual histogram, which is this portion of the tool here, that top, this is a description of what all the icons are. The things that are important are that this histogram will show you what the curve looked like before it was affected by this process, by the GHS tool. It'll show you the solid mark, or the solid data here, graph here, will show you the affected shape of the curve. This is what's happened after you've moved those sliders around. This here is really your black point. So that's like kind of your lower protection point for the blacks. It's not really your black point, but it's indicating the lowest point where the GHS operation will be applied. Anything below that will be linear. Similarly with this white point protection, if you pull that down, if you pull that slider down, anything above that will be a linear stretch. So it's not going through sort of the GHS curve portion. It's taking where that's ending, and then it's just going to do a linear run out to the white point. This indicator here shows you where you're selected on your image, and we're going to do a demo of this, so you're going to see this in better detail. But I have this slide in here so you can go back to it and kind of see what these different things do. And then again, these are different indicators. You can turn on or off the grid. You can toggle whether you see the display, the transformed thing or not, and so forth and so on. You can zoom in. I leave all those on the default. I generally don't play with any of those because the defaults work great. This red line here is important. That's the actual graphical representation of that transformation. So similar to curves, what I showed before with that curves, by pulling down a point in the dark gray and pushing up a point in the light gray, you get this sort of S curve to increase contrast. That's the same kind of curve that you can get with GHS, but the GHS has more parameters that you can control, and you can kind of affect that transformation a little more significantly than curves, or maybe a little, maybe not more significantly, just a little, for me, a little more easily. So what is meant by symmetry point? So the symmetry point is really where the stretching is focused. Think of it as the data value, as the brightness, or not the brightness, but, well, it's sort of the gray value or a data value that the curve, that the stretching operation and anything else will be applied like around. So that gets set by, let's look at an example. So this is an S30 Pro image of the Horsehead and Flame Nebula, single, not a mosaic. So just, this is like full frame of the thing. And this is the histogram after it's been preliminarily stretched using the histogram transformation tool, and then the black point adjusted. And I'll show you that when we get to the demo. So right now there's no generalized hyperbolic stretch transformation applied. So the transfer function goes from black to white in a straight line. So this is sort of the raw curve. So the first thing I want to do is try to set that symmetry point so that the sliders are applied in a predictable way. So if I go to the next slide, a very convenient way to do that is if you pick an area that's fairly dark and click on the image, it'll put this yellow line on your curve. The yellow line shows you where in the image I click. So if I click on something bright like the flame, that line is going to be sitting up here somewhere. But the goal is to try to have that curve, that symmetry point somewhere in the middle of that curve. You can do it by clicking around the image, or you can even click right on this histogram graph. You can click there and it'll put a line there. You then press this send to symmetry point button, and that takes that value, that data value, and populates it in this field. So you press this send to symmetry point and it populates it in this field. So again, you can click on the image. I'll go back since my cursor was on the other screen. You can click on the image here. That'll put a line there, and then you can say send to symmetry point, and it'll populate that value. To me, that looks pretty good. That's pretty much right in the middle of the curve, which means that any operation I make from stretching will be symmetric about that symmetry point. It'll stretch it evenly on both sides of that and bring out that data. So if you look at that, that stretch control, this controls how much that data spreads. And this is that same histogram. I actually did screenshots. So this histogram here, the unstretched version, is those open lines. So it always shows you where you started from when you're doing these manipulations. By pulling this slider up, remember it defaulted to 0. By pulling it up to 1.5, you can see it's stretched that curve symmetrically about that symmetry point, which is indicated here, which has the effect of making it wider and also kind of moving it to the right, moving it brighter. So remember, this is white. You can see the grayscale here. This is black. This is white. So by moving the solid curves to the right, by pushing this slider to the right, I'm making this kind of wider and brighter. So it's effectively spreading, and that's why it's called stretching. So you're effectively stretching that distribution of darker values, because remember, most of that image is dark. The fact that this is high up like that doesn't mean it's bright. It just means that there's a lot of those values. So these are still dark gray values that are in like in a lot of quantity. There's a ton of them there. So you're taking that, like a lot of that darker stuff, and you're making it brighter. There's another control called local intensity. And what the local intensity does is it actually it doesn't slide the curve up in brightness. It actually just fattens the distribution. So it actually widens the distribution. So if you look at the difference between these two curves, you can't see it here, but this stretch value is still 1.5, the same as it was here. And the local intensity, instead of being 0, I pulled up to 1.15. That basically made this curve fatter, but it didn't change the midpoint. It just stretched the distribution a little more. So these are interactive somewhat, because if you have a lot of stretch factor, then you don't want to have necessarily a lot of local intensity, because you're going to blow out the image. It's going to just get way too bright. The background's going to come up way too much, and we'll see this in a minute. There's also another control that I use regularly called protect highlights. And what this will do is this will stop, it'll limit the effect of this stretching operation, the stretch factor and this local intensity, on the brighter part of the image. So by moving this protect highlights slider to where I have it, you can see it took that triangle that was here and moved it down to there. That means that any data above that point will just be a linear transformation. It won't have any additional stretching applied to it beyond this point, beyond where that, the vertical line there. This stuff's harder to explain than it is to actually do, so we'll get to the demo very, very soon. So,
Gary, quick question.
yeah.
A lot of the information like that's on there, is that the same thing? Like if you hover over in PixInsight, you'll see that?
Correct.
Oh, okay, great, thanks.
That's what they are. This is the online help that if you hover over that protect highlights, this will pop up. I did screen grabs of that and then blew it up and then stuck it in here so you could see that. Yeah. But that,
okay, great.
So all of these have in PixInsight. I'm not sure, Siril, somebody else would need to speak to that. Whether it has that kind of the mouse over help that's in PixInsight, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it has the tooltips, but the features work about the same.
Right. But it might not have the tooltips.
Yeah, I don't know. Not clear.
Okay. So the protect highlights is a great way to prevent stars from getting blown out, any bright features in your capture from getting blown out. And you can check that on the image as I'll show you when we do the demo. The protect shadows is a similar control for the low end. To be honest, I can't think of a single time I've used that. I've played with it, and it makes the image brighter. It'll slide it over. So if you had a histogram that was kind of clipped on the left, that would be a time to use that. But I tend to be careful to make sure I don't sort of clip the histogram on either side, so I don't lose any data. What you're really trying to do is stretch the data without losing any, without saturating on the high end. In other words, clipping the white point or clipping the black point. So I don't tend to use that control, but I have it here for completeness. So as far as the demo, I'm going to need to stop sharing so I can change screens, because I have PixInsight. Oh, actually, I guess I can move PixInsight over. Can move PixInsight to here. Yeah, we'll just do that. Okay, so here's that image without any stretching. I'm going to turn off the screen stretch. So this is the automatic stretching. In PixInsight, it's called a screen transfer function. In Siril, I believe it's called auto stretch. So right now, if you look at that image, you don't see anything. If I put on the effectively the auto stretch, that's what's there, waiting to be found or waiting to be brought out. So as I mentioned, I find it better to do some preliminary stretching. So I'm going to turn off the auto stretch, and we have a black screen. By the way, let me just for completeness. So what's happened to this image before it got to this point is I did a background, a gradient correction. So I got rid of the gradient. I did a spectral photometric color calibration while it had the stars. These are the stars here. They were extracted while it had the stars. I did a blur exterminator on that before I extracted the stars. So let me do this. I'm going to go back to so here's this is the image as it was captured and stacked. So this is it as it was captured and stacked. So this is the raw individual files from the C-Star S30 Pro were saved, taken into Photoshop, into PixInsight, and stacked. And this is the output of that stack. So you can see there's a very significant gradient. So I have a big light dome. This is in the south, right? This is in constellation Orion. So this is in the south. And I have a big light dome from the city of Norristown in my south. This is low in the sky for me. And that's the gradient that was naturally there. So the first thing I did was a gradient correction. So I applied in PixInsight, there's a gradient correction tool that was applied to it. And we're not going to go through each of these steps, but just to show you this one, since it's a relatively fast one. So that got rid of the gradient. If I go back to the pre-gradient to post-gradient, that's the difference, which is significant. So getting rid of gradients, doing this linear manipulation before you actually do any stretching is important. Next thing I did was a spectrophotometric color calibration to make sure that the stars were the correct color and hence the background information, all the nebulosity was corrected also. I then did a blur exterminator to sharpen up the stars a little. You can see right out of the gun though, this is straight out of the S30 Pro. That's the upper left corner stars, upper right corner stars, lower right, and lower left. So they're very impressive for a relatively inexpensive small refractor. And the center stars are quite good. So I then did a blur exterminator, a star extraction to get the stars. And then I did a sort of medium level noise reduction on this. You can still see there's a fair amount of noise in it. And I'm okay with that. I don't like things that are over noise corrected. They look too fake to me. So you can see there's still a fair amount of noise in there, but it's fine when you're looking at it in this way. So then this image here is the resultant of that process, of those different processes. So the next thing I'm going to do is a histogram transformation on that to kind of get the data into a usable range for me to apply that GHS tool. So I'm going to turn off the auto stretch. Let me minimize that. And we got this basically a black image. So this is the histogram transformation that I use. Sorry, my tools keep popping up on my other screen. I'm going to turn on the histogram and I'm going to turn on the real-time preview. And in PixInsight, you do that by hitting this check mark to turn on the histogram and this little circle to turn on the real-time preview. You can see that histogram is sitting way down here on the left-hand side. Doesn't have any width to it at all. You can barely see it out of the noise floor. But that's where all that data is. That's where all that nebulosity is. It's right in that little band of pixel values, of really dark pixel values. So normally the histogram transformation tool, when you first bring it up, it's actually set, the gray point or the midpoint is set right in the center, so you can't even see the histogram. So what you do is, pull it over to get that to be a little bit stretched. Still can't really see much. If I compare it to nothing, there's a very slight change. I can barely see it on my screen here. But by pulling that tool over, I just brought that back up so I have the value that I actually used. So then I'm going to apply that. In PixInsight, I can drag this over to the image, or I can hit this little square. I'm going to apply that, and you can see what that did. That histogram transformation brought that histogram a little bit further to the right, and it made it a little bit wider. I'm going to do that same thing again. And now it made it noticeably wider and brought it way over to the point where there's way too much, kind of gray in the background. So the next thing I'm going to do, this is it. If that would have been if it were applied a third time. This is it now after those two operations. I'm then going to take, the, let me get this back to. So here's the curve with the black point adjusted up. So you can see here, that's kind of what it would be if it was defaulted. This is what it was to start with. I'm going to slide this over, stretch it some more, and then I'm going to get rid of some of that background without clipping the black point by pulling that over to the right. And I'm being careful that I don't cut off that curve. If I bring that black point too high, it'll start to lose data. It still doesn't look bad, but you're chopping off a bunch of data, a bunch of fine nebulosity. So I want to bring that black point to the point where it's, and you can stretch that up a little more, bring that over a little more, to something like that. That's my preliminary stretching. So I would apply that. I'm going to close it anyway, yeah. And that's this image. So again, that's 2 histogram stretches initially, and then a third histogram stretch with the black point adjustment at the same time. So at this point, from the way I process stuff, I'm ready to do the generalized hyperbolic stretch. So if I open that tool, and then I do the preview, I'm going to reset that tool. So now I have a real-time preview. So that's basically that. It's that image again. I have the GHS at its default state. So no stretch, no local intensity, no symmetry point, black point here, white point here, no protection. And then that's the curve that we just saw on that last histogram, the histogram transformation. So the first thing I want to do is set that symmetry point. And again, you can kind of go right to the middle of the curve and just click here and set that. You can also click around your image. You can see if I click up here in this bright nebulosity where the flame is, you can see that symmetry point jumping all over the place. That is the data value at that point in the image. But typically you want to try to spread this reasonably symmetrical about the peak of that curve. You don't have to. You can actually set it here and then stretch. And that'll bring up your background, like your really dark stuff, a lot. You can bring it here just as an example and stretch that. And now it's taking this part of the curve as kind of the center and stretching symmetrically about that. I find it tends to work well if you put it somewhere in the middle of that curve. And then you can do here, you can say send to symmetry point. So once you position that curve, I click that button and that populates this variable with that value. So now I've kind of locked where that tool is going to operate about. Then you can start to stretch it and get a sense of what that's doing. Now this has already been pre-stretched, so it isn't going to need a lot of additional stretching. If you wanted to just do a more limited histogram distribution stretch, you can use that as your starting point too. I tend to use this GHS as more of a kind of fine control. And then I tend to pull down this protect highlights, which you can see what that does. That's pushing that curve backwards. It's making it a little less wide, but it's also pushing it backwards to protect those highlights. You can bring up that local intensity, so I'm fattening that curve a little, and you know, basically manipulate that distribution that way too. Let me show you what happens if I increase the protect shadows. So if I increase that slider, you can see that it's pushing the curve to the right, and it's generally brightening that whole histogram distribution because it's pushing the curve to the right. So in that case, I'm going to wind up, once I adjust the black point, I'm going to wind up clipping data if I leave it at that. So I tend to not use that control. You can't put it above there. It won't let you put it above the symmetry point. That'll be the lowest, or the most you can advance that value is to the symmetry point. Similarly with the protect highlights, you can't bring that below the symmetry point. So when you apply that tool, you wind up with this image. Now there's a lot of background. This image could use more data. It's a little bit overstretched for this example. I normally wouldn't stretch it quite that much. But if you were to then adjust the black point of that, so now if I look at that, I'm pulled up the histogram transformation again, and I'm going to adjust the black point. So if I start to pull the black point down, you can see where that gray kind of U that's over the image starts to fall. And I'm going to just bring it right to kind of the tail of the blue. And then apply that to the image. And then from this point, you could do further manipulation. So then I actually applied a curve to that, a very slight curve to improve the contrast. Let me put the histogram on it. So there's the histogram. And then even if you wanted to, this is plenty saturated to my eye, but you could even bring up the you know, saturation if you wanted to. So, where am I here? So any questions regarding that, kind of the operation of that tool or the or those controls?
Now, Gary, everything that we're working in now is still in the linear. Is that correct?
No, this is nonlinear. As soon as I did the first histogram transformation, it went from linear to nonlinear.
Okay, because because that's making a permanent change that may why it gets changed from that point. Correct?
Yeah,
Okay, gotcha.
yeah, yeah. Everything up to that first histogram transformation was linear. So if I go back to this, let me go back to the yeah, I don't want to save that. So let me go back to the starless image. So this is the starless image with no stretch. So this has the blur exterminator and then star exterminator. And then actually I'm sorry, let me go one more. This one is before the noise reduction. Let me grab the one with the noise exterminator on it. That's that one. So again, if I were to do a little less of a stretch, I'm going to reset that tool. I'm going to show the preview, show the histogram. I'm going to pull that up a little. Oh, I got to turn off the automatic screen transfer. I'll pull that up a little bit. We'll apply that. And then I'm going to apply that again. So let's say we started there. Let's say we use that as the starting point. So now the histogram is out of the noise floor. And it could use some additional stretching. So here I have an image that's slightly stretched. And now I'm going to apply the generalized hyperbolic stretch. I'm going to reset the parameters. You can see that the curves here. And even though it's a little hard to work with, I can kind of zoom in on that. So I can at least place that symmetry point. And then I'm going to say send to symmetry point. So now if I stretch that, I'm going to have to be more aggressive. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me put the preview up. I'm going to have to be way more aggressive because I have to get that curve out of the noise floor. It still works fine. So if I do local intensity, so I'm pulling that like almost all the way up. So let's say let's go with that. So that's a reasonable looking histogram. I don't have, if I check my pixel values, I don't have anything that's anywhere near blown out, right? These values are less than half of the maximum range. Each of these scale, you can see the little RGB values there moving around. They all go to 1.0 would be saturated. So I'm far enough away from saturation on all these values. You can see the curve is going down to, 0 there. So let's apply that. Let's get rid of the preview. And now I'll adjust the black point. So we'll put a preview here. There's the histogram. I'm going to move the black point and bring it there. So we're going to apply that black point. I'm going to reset my parameters. And now that's the image that I'm working with. I could then take that image. Let's reset this. I could take that image and do the same thing. We'll send that to the symmetry point, and then I can continue. Oh, let me turn on the preview. I can continue to stretch that if I wanted to. And you can see we got back to where we were before. So all of these tools work kind of hand in hand. So if I were doing this again, I'd probably just have another very minor stretch. I probably wouldn't even use the GHS at this point. Chances are I would take this starting point and I would use something like curves. I'm going to put the histogram on that. I'm going to put the preview up. And I would start to manipulate the data using that. I can start to pull up that middle ground without bringing up a lot of that background. In the previous example where I kind of overstretched the using the histogram and then used the GHS, I then went to curves after that and actually pulled down that background, the sort of the muck that was in that real dark region. If I wanted to improve the saturation, increase in saturation, I could pull that up a little bit there. And there you have, you have a decent looking stretch. If I'm concerned about blowing out the highlights, which in this case we're still far from saturated, you could put a point here and start to pull that down a tiny bit. One thing you want to protect against is going kind of negative here, because you'll get weird, like weird artifacts. You can see here, this turned gray, this turned gray. So you always want these curves to be kind of well-behaved looking, and you don't want to do anything too drastic. This is even a little more than I typically do in one step. But just as an example, I don't believe we've gotten into trouble yet with this image. And if I were to apply that, now it's going to take that same curve, try to put it on there again. Now it's starting to look kind of wonky. But if you were to do that, it's a little more so than I to my taste, but it's still not a bad looking representation, because the other thing you got to consider is when you put the stars on top of that, and this is just kind of a real rudimentary way, but when you put the stars on top of that, so if I were to combine the stars with that, you can see it doesn't look that bad. And then the next steps after that, I got rid of the green. There was a green cast. I did a slight arc sine H stretch. I then did stretch the stars, which they were already stretched, what you saw. Then I blended those two images. And then I did another little curves adjustment. I rotated it 90 degrees. I resampled it because I did a 2x drizzle on this. And then I did one finer, really low level noise reduction on it. And the final image, let me see, I think I have the final image here. And this is one of my first things, just playing around with the sea star. So yeah, so this, and to me, the background's a little too bright for the amount of data that I have, but I was trying to see how much kind of nebulosity was in there, because this is a very, very high nebulosity region. If you compare that, this was shot, by the way, with the built-in light pollution filter, that dual band filter that's in the sea star. As a comparison, back in 2022, I took a picture of the flame in the horse head without a nebula filter in it. using a 4-inch refractor, so much bigger telescope and a larger sensor camera, and that's this image. So even though this is a much better image because it's a much higher resolution camera, much bigger telescope, 30 millimeters versus 100 millimeter diameter. You can get a sense of the color shift between those two with the light pollution filter. The other thing that's particularly interesting, and one of the reasons why I use the light pollution filter is because when I shot this as a test of the C-Star S30, I had just gotten it. It was a full moon. The moon was like 95% or something. So this was actually shot with a full moon. So a lot of that background stuff that you're seeing is probably moon glow, in addition to all the light pollution, because I had to wait till it cleared the trees, so it was later in the night, so it was getting closer to the horizon, which meant closer to the light dome when I shot it. So you saw that big gradient, that big background gradient that was there. But still, I mean, when you think about that small telescope, it's impressive in my opinion. So anyway, that's the tool. These are the links I put in the chat window. So this is that histogram curves workshop presentation. This is the kind of the user manual for generalized hyperbolic stretch for PixInsight. And then for Siril, they have a document called image stretching, which has the histogram, it has curves, it has GHS, it has arcsine H in it. It goes through all of them, so you could compare those. There also are other stretching tools like the arcsine H that are very useful, simpler to use. And if people are interested, I could do another kind of back to basics in the future to just do a similar thing to this, talking about the arcsine H and how to kind of set that up if that's something of interest to the group. And that's it.
Thanks, Gary. That was great.
Yeah, thanks, Gary.
Thanks, Gary.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate you covering some
Great,
Siril.
Gary.
You're welcome. Let me get back to unsharing. Where am I? Stop share. Here we go.
So Gary, I guess some of the take homes on this is that the hyperbolic stretch is kind of you want to do the rough stuff with, and the generalized hyperbolic stretch is going to be the finer type thing.
You could be pretty aggressive with the GHS. So I tend to use curves more to do the finer adjustments. But again, it's a matter of taste. It's a matter of I kind of learned before all these tools were available. There was curves and histograms. So they're kind of my go-to tools. The one thing to keep in mind too, let me just share one more. I'm going to move this over here. So let me share PixInsight again. I got to move PixInsight over. Hold on. All my tools are probably going to pop up on the other side now. It's the nemesis. I love having two monitors, but for screen sharing, even though you know how to keep them apart, it becomes challenging sometimes. So I'm going to share this screen. We're going to get this out of the way. So if you look at the GHS tool, and now my tools are popping up on the other screen, since that's where I left them. So if you look at the GHS, it's kind of interesting. If you look at this transformation type, I'm going to put the preview window here. If you open that up, there's midterm transfer, which is your histogram, your plain histogram, basically. There's arcsine H in it also. So it'll actually apply those mathematics using these same sliders. So it isn't just it has power law and then also linear transformation. So it isn't just the generalized hyperbolic. It'll actually do other type of transfer functions also. I tend to use them in their kind of natural state. So I tend to leave. In fact, I always leave for when I'm using a GHS tool. I always leave it for generalized hyperbolic. When I'm using the arcsine H, I pull up the arcsine H tool. And if you look at something like arcsine H, if I reset that, it's the basic image. You can have it estimate the black point. You can then pull that down so you can get rid of the clipping. Anything in red there is clipping. Pull that down and then you can stretch it. You can have it protect your highlights. So it kind of does like that same thing of the protect highlights in the GHS. It does a similar thing to that. And then I usually leave it, since if I'm working in RGB, I'll leave it RGB working space. So all these tools have very similar kind of operations. They just approach things a little bit differently. You can use them hand in hand, use them in conjunction with one another.
Now, do you also, like when you're doing a little bit, you make it, do you do multiple things, like a little bit and apply it, a little bit and apply it till you get what you want and then move on to your next step?
Typically. Yeah. And sometimes I'll do a little bit, then I'll do a couple other steps, like get rid of the green, like that SCNR for the green, to get rid of some of that. And I usually dial that back. They default to like 100%. I usually bring it back to 80% or something. I have those reduced defaults saved as process icons. In PixInsight, you can do that. I'm not sure if Siril, I assume there's some way to do that in Siril to kind of save an instance of the tool in the way you like to work with it. But one of these years I'll load up Siril and actually use it a lot and get familiar with it so I can talk to it more intelligently. Right now, I rely on John and Tom and
Just pick one and go with it. It's fine.
but they're all very, very similar.
Yeah.
And then sometimes, so I'll do a couple other operations and I'll go back and I'll tweak the curves a little bit more. When you brighten things, I mentioned this during the clinics. When you brighten an object, you actually wind up decreasing the saturation. So adding saturation to an object is not cheating. It's not like a way of just making it look unreal. You can if you do too much of it. But when you brighten, when something is brighter, if you walk into a bright scene, your brain tries to dial that scene back. And part of that dialing that scene back is to reduce the saturation. So when things are brighter, they actually appear visually less saturated. So when you're brightening an object, brightening an image, bringing up that saturation is actually compensating for some of that tendency of your brain to perceive it as less colorful if it's brighter. So that's why a little bit of a saturation boost is not a bad thing. Years and years ago, I was like, for some goofy reason, it's like, nope, I'm not doing it. It's cheating. And I want to, it's BS. That was, I don't know what I was thinking. It's kind of like, that isn't the way your brain works. So why should you treat image processing that way? Whether it's a snapshot on vacation or whether it's an astro image, it's the same kind of thing. If it's dark and you increase the brightness, it will look less colorful to you. So, any other questions? Any other stuff about that? Okay, so let's move on to show and tell stuff. I know Tom has stuff. I hope, did we lose Steve? Oh no, Steve Haas is still here. Great. Steve always has good stuff. So anyone who, Joe, I'm guessing you're doing stuff out in Texas. I don't know, but whatever anyone has, please. This is the
That's a
time.
long story.
Well, why don't you jump in there, Joe? Because you had a little thing prepared, I think, right?
Just a little thing, just a
Okay.
real little thing. So, okay. If I can find it, of course, and it's like, this could take all night.
You should
You're
have
like
started
me,
20
Joe,
minutes
to be on
ago.
the wrong screen.
Right, right. Okay. Can you guys see this?
Nope.
Not yet.
While Joe is tuning that up there, if anybody's a Flyers fan, they're ahead 3-1 at the end of the second period.
Oh,
Oh,
man.
good.
Unbelievable.
So they I don't want to jinx it, but could be 3 games tonight.
Yeah, 3.
Phew, man.
Yeah. Remember, it's never over till the fat lady sings.
Who would have thought?
How
I
about
don't,
now?
I don't hear my wife screaming.
Nope,
so
not
that's
yet,
good.
Joe.
Oh, good.
See if you can share your whole desktop and then kind of
I
zoom
did.
in.
Yeah, I am. It's an entire screen. There we go.
So real quick on the Flyers game, have you ever heard of the jinx of the 3-1 score at the end of the second period?
No.
Serious?
It's a couple of guys that I watch pretty regularly on ESPN. It's called Pardon the Interruption.
Coming up,
You
Joe.
got it, Joe.
And,
You go,
and
Joe.
they talk
All
about
right.
that a lot.
Boy, anything's possible. I'm sorry. Go ahead. You guys finish.
No, I was just going to say real quickly that they always say that 3-1 score, if you're up 3-1, you got to be real careful in that third period.
That's
We'll see.
funny.
I hope that doesn't bear out tonight.
Yeah, really.
Don't get
What are you
lazy.
saying, Stan?
Yeah. Stan's just busting my galloons. That's all.
No.
I was happy. Now I'm nervous.
Okay, take it away, Joe.
So a couple months ago, Steve Haas had a great shot of Lower's Nebula. He did it with a Sea Star, and it was really just an amazing shot. It's a really, dim Mission Nebula in the Winter Milky Way, And when he did it and talked about Lower's Nebula, I remembered back to my early days of amateur telescope making and the amateur telescope making books, which, they were a collaboration of a fellow by the name of Albert Ingalls, who wrote for Scientific American, and Russell Porter, who's the father of amateur telescope making in the United States. And I remember several articles in those early books that were written by the Lowers. So I just wanted to really quickly share this with you because I kind of looked them up anew. And so these are my books. Can you see them okay?
Yeah.
There it goes.
This is 1939 edition of amateur telescope making, and they were basically culled from articles which appeared in Scientific American, and their gleanings for gleanings in the back of the book,
amateur scientist, I
amateur
think.
scientist,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So, and when these books came out, the third edition had not yet been written. So volume 2, which is on the bottom there, it was actually called Advanced at that point. So just wanted to show you a couple of slides really quick. So these are the Lowers. They were amateur telescope makers from San Diego, California. Charles Lower is on the left, Harold Lower, who was writing an article here on telescope drives. And I assumed a lot of those were just probably, weight driven at that point. So this article with Charles and Harold Lower appeared in the advanced version. And these are 2 telescopes that they had made, a 12-inch Cassegrain and a 12-inch Newtonian. So these fellas were really quite adept, and this is during the Depression, making use of different materials, that were available, weren't ordering from a catalog. So, roll-off observatory, pretty advanced. And this is an article they wrote on a Schmidt camera that they had built. And this was an F1 Schmidt camera. And that's the Schmidt camera that they built. And I don't think it has any electricity in it. They were using, I guess, film from 120 film, I guess maybe from a Brownie camera, and they were using a red filter. And because the focus of a Schmidt Cassegrain, the classic Schmidt Cassegrain, is curved, I assume the filter they were using, a red filter, was a gelatin type filter. So this is the telescope that was used to discover Lower's Nebula. And that's another photograph taken of that. And I just wanted to share that a little bit. It was a remarkable photo that Steve has. I mean, I've photographed it myself. It's exceptionally dim, that particular nebula. But, in F1, imagine that, back in 39. And, the Schmidt cameras just were discovered in 1930. I mean, Bernie Schmidt discovered that in 1930. The idea came to the United States with Walter Baade, who had worked, as a German national at Mount Wilson Observatory, and brought this idea over to the United States. And from there, Russ Porter, designed a small telescope, an 18-inch Schmidt camera, and he was the designer of that. And that particular Schmidt camera was used to discover comet. He's drawing a blank. Levy, what do you call it? Levy 9, the one that hit Jupiter. So this was early on, less than 10 years. Yeah, I'm sorry, Shoemaker Levy 9. This telescope was, built by amateurs less than 10 years after the Schmidt camera was discovered. So I just thought I'd share that.
Yeah, pretty interesting.
That's cool.
Pretty amazing, right?
Really?
And back then, I mean, the emulsions were so unbearably slow, which made, the development of Schmidt camera like really a great boon to anybody who was trying to do astrophotography. I mean, you've got a little bit of the Bernard's loop there, and of course, the Orion Nebula. Anyway,
Yeah,
just a
then they
shot from
started-
Texas.
And then they started adding the cold cameras to those things.
Right. Well, the cold emulsion cameras came out when I was in college. That was, I guess, early
That was in the
70s,
40s,
70s. One fell out of my saddlebag and yeah, lost it. No, but I actually built one though out of a Pentax camera. I made a plexiglass little thing around it and cut through the film holder and put a brass tube in there and would fill it with dry ice and with variable results, But it's amazing, that, I mean, gee, everything is so off the shelf now, but that was a while back anyway.
Yeah, the
So-
days that we used to hyper film also.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
used hyperfilm. We would get it from Lumicon and develop our own negatives.
You
Yeah.
had to. You had to
Had
develop
to,
your
yeah.
own
Didn't have a
negatives.
whole lot of a choice,
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah.
This is a shot of the owl, I guess.
Yeah.
And what's that? 108 or
Yeah,
109?
and M108, yeah,
Yeah.
from Texas. It's been cloudy down there for about the entire month. Just amazing, and it's almost a year since I started shooting down there. But I started shooting at the end of April, and the April, May, like early June months were the best months I've had down there. But I wasn't acquainted with early April, which has been, clouds just about every night. And I was dying to shoot that last Pan-STARRS comet, but it wasn't the case. I don't know if Steve Haas had an opportunity to do that or not, but
Nah, I've had horrible.
yeah.
And when I do get started, I turn around and look 2 hours later and the roof is closed.
Right. That's happened to me a few times. Even the 1 or 2 nights that looked like it was going to be clear. the roofs were closed. So it's been a difficult time down there, Um, and we actually had a lot of smoke over the winter, from fires in Mexico. So we've had our challenges um, in that place. But anyway, to give you some idea, this was with the 400 millimeter lens, and that M108 is about I think 8.7 arc minutes. To give you an idea of what it would be like with a C star, this probably is fairly close to the view you would get with an S50. Anyway, so that's it. Just
Well, very good.
Thank you, Joe.
oh sure.
Good.
Sorry to hear they've had a lot of bad weather. I know there's been a lot of storms and tornadoes and stuff going through, starting
Yeah.
down there, that area, and sweeping
Yeah,
down.
it's all seems to come up from the south, it's at the juncture of three air masses, in the spring, and that's what leads to a lot of tornadic, activity, and thunderstorms, etc. So better days are ahead, I'm sure.
Yes. And Tom, you said you had something that was like a comparison with the 50 and the
Well,
30.
it's a one is a comparison and a little kind of a cheat thing that I was working on. I'm always working for. Um, how come my share is not lit up?
Uh-oh, John, take it over.
No, it should be set up for all people, and you're also a co-host. Here you go.
There you
You
go.
can see me?
Yeah, it's coming.
It's coming, yeah.
There it is.
Yep.
Clubhouse, there you go. Got it.
Okay. Do you guys see this?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like
Rosette.
a giant rosette.
That is 5 minutes during astronomical twilight with the 4-day-old moon about 90 degrees away.
Ah.
It's
Wow.
5 minutes. But actually, I kind of like this shot because it's unusual because of the kind of the bluish horizon and the trees in there and all. But this is a straight up picture. This is the exact size of the field of view. It's not cropped at all of the C-Star S30. So it gives you an idea what that can do.
That's the Pro, Tom, the 30.
This is the Pro. Yeah, this is the one I have on short loan here, and I wanted to give it a quick try. I tried a bunch of little different things, but for 5 minutes, and this is before 9 o'clock at night. This is like
Wow.
at 8:55,
That's a pretty dim object. It's kind of
But as you can see, I only had a very short time to catch it because of the trees. But anyway, thought that was kind of this was I call this quick process because you guys are going to go nuts when I say this, but it's actually a real cheat sheet process that I use that I have some students trying, where you start with the JPEG and you do very little stuff with it. And so I'm not even doing the fits. I'm just playing with the JPEG. I do a real quick background extraction, a little bit of noise reduction, pump it through a histogram with the black point shift, and get rid of the green noise, and I'm done. But it's really down and dirty. But I couldn't even if I tried to do a star extraction on this, it couldn't find the nebula on the linear. But anyway, size comparison. Okay, now look at the size of this S30. This is the S50. What it looks like.
Wow.
Straight up. All I got is the center. You can see the all I'm getting is this little piece here with the S50.
Boy, that looks like when I've done my rosette with my 11. That's all I get is that center part.
So
Yeah.
so the idea of having an S50 Pro gets pretty interesting all of a sudden because you get more detail and everything. But anyway, so that's that. And the next thing is kind of an opinion thing. I'm thinking about writing a short article. I'm supposed to write an article this month again for the newsletter, and those are all F30 shots. And the left-hand shots here. This is the whale with the little pup and the hockey stick.
Yeah.
This is the full frame. Right out of this is the C-Star GIF file. I mean GIF the JPEG. This is the JPEG here. Uh, and this is just processed only using Graspert, and that's it, nothing else. Um, with the mentality, now I'm using a beta version of Graspert that has the deconvolution, but the idea is, and this is just a crop version of the same thing, is for people who have the S30s or they're borrowing them and stuff like that. It's easier for the people in the club that would borrow it and just want to see things a little better. Here's M81. The more dramatic ones, I gotta admit, this is 81, 82. Now you get a green. The green, I got some nasty green here, and with Grassbird, I'm not removing the green, so that drives me a little crazy. But you can see it really brings them up. Here is in the Como Virgo area with that whole chain of galaxies around, I think 84, 86, and all those guys. This is right out of C Star. One on the right here is almost full frame. I cropped it a little, that's why it's a little smaller, but same image scale. But using Grassbird, you can begin to pull some of this stuff up. And if you look close on the C Star version, you crop it down, you begin to see little galaxies, but they really stand out a lot more. This here, it can't really see much, but down here, you can begin to see some of maybe that may be part of the eyes,
Yeah.
I'm thinking. But as far as like somebody borrowing this, and if they're getting this, they might like this better. And it's a pretty easy step. Actually, takes under 2 minutes, probably about a minute and a half, and it's kind of mechanical. Here is the Leo triplet, full frame on the left, just going through the Grasper thing on the full frame. But if you zoom in, I mean, it just shows up. You can see the dark rift in the hamburger. Really nice. You get a little more detail in here in the brightness and a little bit of detail on 66, even a little bit on 65. So I don't know. What do you guys think about that? You think it's worth telling people about?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
I
I
mean,
do.
I think that's great, Tom.
just as a quick thing that they could do
Yeah,
for a non-astrophotographer. This is just for the average Joe, and which I am, so I can relate to this. But with the just to kind of bring it out more and quickly and literally, it's just, I mean, it's a very I use the same exact settings in Grasper for all the sets of images. I wanted to see if it would carry across, and so if you just copy down the 5 values, or the 4 values, go bang, 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 and save it, you got it. So. And there's 2 more shots here. There's one of this is Comet Pan-STARRS full frame type of thing with the S50. It centers it. It was so close to twilight that I did not dare move the scope to get the head down further because I've had trouble with that sometimes with some drifting, and I only had like a 6 to 10 minute window as it cleared my house, and that's just a crop version. But that's the S50 version of that. So anyway,
Nice.
that was the only
Very cool.
stars I got. But it's the first C-star picture that I got detail in the comet. The other ones have been kind of like fanned out tails, with maybe 1 or 2 little streamers buried deep. But this had a little more nodding in it and stuff. So there you go.
Well, your exposures on the comet out of
The
curiosity.
comet moves slower than the other ones. It actually I go up to 4 minutes. Typically with Lemon and those guys, Swan, I could go about 2, and I start to get the head would start to show if I zoomed in a little bit of like a linear line, a linear drift kind of thing. But I could go 4 minutes without it. I actually shot that was like a 6 minute series of frames, and I restacked them. And the most I could get was the 4 minutes. Beyond that, it started to stretch out. But with 4 minutes, it stayed pretty round.
Yeah, and the stars seem sharp and nice, which is nice.
So anyway,
Tom, you stacked that in sharp cap, I think you said.
I chopped. Yeah, I did in sharp cap. It was a crazy number of satellites in there. I ran through it to blow off a couple of the satellites. I mean, literally, in some 10-second exposures, I was getting 3 and 4 satellites in 10 seconds. I mean, it was incredible. It was just going through. So I was really, so I tried a couple of short ones. If I saw like 3 or 4 go through in one exposure, I would just restart the stack and start it over again, so I get a few in a row that I could deal with. Because I couldn't even use the Sigma clipping because I couldn't get 5 pictures in a row that didn't have trails in them. So it was really tough. So I had to manually go through the frames and yank out the satellite trail ones. But and I used John's Uber Smooth at the end there. Little plug there for Uber Smooth.
That's right.
Actually, I took those shots of the same images that I shot with the C Star. I did go through the regular processing through Siril and Grasper like I would do normally, and they come out. They're photometrically color calibrated and green noise reduced and all, and they come out quite a bit better. But you can see the really cool thing that the S30 could do on those larger objects, man, like the Rosette and stuff. It could just eat those up. I imagine Sagittarius is going to be a real hoot to go through, even just parts of the Milky Way in general. And there's a Milky Way mode with the S30 that I didn't try any of that, but you could, it's like a 40 some degree field, 42 or 45 to 46 degree field. And you can have it be in star trail mode, or you can have it track or do all kinds of things with it. So that seems like a pretty cool scope. Anyway, that's what I got.
Very cool. That's great, Tom. Thank you.
Very cool, Tom.
I think even cropping them down, Frank, that might answer some of your questions in terms of the small galaxies.
You can still get some
And
detail.
cropping them down, you can see detail in there, like you saw in the eyes and the the whale galaxy and stuff. You can see the shapes of those, and
The hamburger, you can see the dark rift.
yeah, you're muted, Frank.
I was gonna say, I'm noticing that in the things, you do get you can crop things to get what you want.
Yeah, because it's a big chip. So when you bring it up on your screen, even on your laptop screen, it's only at about 28%. So you go to 100%, it's like several screens across. You can just get the piece you want. And anyway,
So that wide angle field of view, I just looked at the presentation I gave for the clinic because I had a screen. I had a slide with the S30 Pro. It's 63 degree
oh, 63. Wow.
in a portrait orientation, so 63 degrees.
That's
So
really
it's
amazing.
significant.
Boy,
But you also said that the 30 Pro is gonna go up in price in May, is that right?
May 1st. You got to get we're getting near the end of the sale days they're talking
May
about.
1st, it goes up to $699. It's
But
$599.
I saw some sites though. I mean, I got a thing from High Point and from Gene Astro saying like tomorrow's the last day that they're going to hold the price, and it's going up.
Yeah.
I think
That's for
tomorrow they had a neat ZWO sale. That ends tomorrow night.
Yeah, but they were talking about explicitly sent me an email about the S30 Pro, and they had a 599 had a crossing, and it was 699. They said, and I got one today. I got one a few days ago, and when I got today, they said this is it.
Oh, maybe they changed it. Yeah,
I'll look here real quick. I know I
that's
have.
what I mean. I got a separate email too on that.
Yeah. There's last chance. Do. Okay, that was the first one. Increases soon. And last chance. Well, it's the last chance for the. Oh, maybe there's. Oh, you might be right. It might be the NEAF sale ends tomorrow.
Yeah, the neat.
Yeah, that's I got those confused. Yeah, right.
Ends 1
Yeah,
minute
the other one
before
is May
midnight
1st.
tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And then it looks like it looks like their S30 Pro is still
Yeah, we have till the end of the
May
month.
1st, but I don't know. Yeah, maybe they'll change it.
Well, the fact that you guys saw the S50 Pro up at NEAF, I wonder if that scuttles the S70 rumors that were going around,
They still, even when that interview that I saw with the founder of ZWO, she specifically asked him about the S70 rumors. He didn't blow it off. he didn't say no, that's BS. He said, well, yeah, we have a lot of things in the pipeline. He didn't confirm or deny, but he did confirm that the S50 Pro looks like the next thing. It was that woman, Space Koala,
Oh, I know her. Yeah, yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
Bartik. I didn't forget her last name, but
I just know her as the
Space
space koala. Yeah.
she's the one who interviewed him.
Mm,
They were like it looked like they were sort of in a side room or something like that. They had a table, like a coffee table between them, not in the display area.
okay.
So he didn't actually deny it because she specifically asked him. So they might have like a big brother kind of thing come out.
I imagine get to the S70 though, you start getting up around 350 millimeters. The tracking mechanisms and stuff there's more constraints on that sort of thing, because it gets harder as you're increasing that focal length.
Exactly.
It's not the lenses only that you have to consider,
Yeah.
I mean, you have to consider, guiding,
Yeah, guiding is
curves,
going to be a lot more challenging.
Yeah.
right? And then you have to worry about like equipment flexure,
Yeah, everything starts
there's
added. All the
right,
problems you have with the regular setup.
right, orders of complexity,
Yeah.
greater. But anyway, hey,
Yeah.
Frank, I'm sorry. I just wanted to mention, I didn't know, it's getting a little late. Frank, I'm not going to have any of the C stars available on Saturday. On Friday night. They're all spoken for, but I put you in for next month. Okay.
Okay, great.
I'm really sorry.
It's no problem. I mean,
they're
I
really
may,
hot items, and all four of those instruments are like going like hotcakes. So I apologize for that, but I did put you on the list, so you'll be hearing from me. Okay.
I may own one by that point, but keep me on the list
Right.
anyway.
Right. Well, that's happened. That's happened. I've had people on the list and I call them and I, say, hey, it's ready. And they're like, I've been taking shots for 10 nights,
Yeah,
So,
right.
yeah.
Hey, thank you
So,
guys a lot.
yeah. But I have you down. So, okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
Oh, I was just going to say quickly, like I've actually gone back when I did equatorial mode with the C-Star S30 Pro. I initially shot at 1 minute, and I found that just even being a little off, like they have it in tenths of a degree in terms of the polar alignment. If I was like 2/10 or something instead of 1/10 in terms of how much I wanted to dial it in, the amount of frames I would lose would be like crazy. I'd lose most of the frames. Going down to 30 seconds improved it significantly. So I've actually started to shoot even in equatorial mode at 30 seconds because I get a much higher hit rate. And it's also a lot more forgiving as far as how tightly I dial in the polar alignment.
You did a
I
line
had the
group.
same issue, even at Starfront. I got a tangle with the cable, and so my home position wasn't quite right. And I had to back down to 30 seconds and just to get anything done.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's consistent with my experience with my S50 is 30 seconds is about, yeah, you can go longer, but it just drops frames crazily.
Yeah.
Just as a side comment, those images that I shot were all 10-second in alt as because I thought, yeah, there you go, John, 10 seconds, baby. You shoot more than that, you're out of your mind. but
I don't think the C stars have an option for 5 seconds, Tom.
well, actually, the Pro has like 1 second, 2 second, 5 second. So I'm pushing limit with 10 seconds. But anyway, I ran it all as because I thought you had to be able to see the pole, and I can't see the pole from my yard. So I thought it had to, but I jumped on here a little after 7. You guys were talking about you can you can sense that equatorial up without seeing the pole star, I guess, right?
It doesn't even use the pole star. It doesn't even,
Okay.
you just point it towards it. You have the
Yeah,
bottom.
I'm blocked
It
about.
actually points up towards the
Yeah.
zenith.
Okay. Because I'm okay. That's good to know. Because
I just use the North Star when I'm setting it down on my spot on the
yeah,
side.
just to get an
Right,
idea.
just to line it
get
up.
my alignment.
Yeah,
And
fine tune it.
I don't do it. It does the rest.
Does it do
And
tricks?
I've never set it to like all sky mode. That's just what it does. It points up and it goes like a little bit, maybe 20 degrees off zenith on the
Mhm.
left, or like towards the west, in other words. And then it takes a picture, goes similar distance to the east, and then it tells you what to adjust. So it doesn't even look at the pole star when it's doing the polar alignment.
Okay. Well, there you
Equatorial.
go.
Yeah.
So anyway, those exposures were all very short and old eyes and all that kind of thing. So
Yeah, but nobody matches John's record with his Dob.
yeah, right.
A 50 millisecond exposure. I forget what you were doing, but it
It's
was
maybe like 300 milliseconds, but yeah.
300 milliseconds.
300 milliseconds.
Yeah.
The
3
amazing
photons.
thing is you got good images out of that. That is
I know.
unbelievable.
Yeah, 50,000 frames later. That's
Just
why
buy a
it
new
has a
computer.
giant computer and a giant hard
Yeah,
drive.
yeah.
That's like doing film photography with a digital camera, all the same complexities and having to move it and guide and stuff. Oh man, that's wild.
That is wild.
I love it.
Yeah. John, I knew you were a keeper when
I,
you talked to us about that and you showed us what you were doing. I thought this guy's cool.
I didn't know I didn't know I was breaking the rules. I didn't know what was
Yeah,
Oh,
right.
it's great. No, that's what it's about, right? Break the rules, figure out what works and doesn't. Anyway, anything else from anyone before we sign off?
Just one thing,
Yeah.
2 things.
Okay.
I got this book for PixInsight,
Okay.
and it
Oh,
isn't as good as about 12 pages inside this book. It's amazing. But yeah, thanks for doing PixInsight. I'll definitely check that recording because busy as heck. One of the things I'm doing is trying to get my LX200 from 1995 to guide. It's currently what I'm doing. It's a real. It's not an S anything. It's like a challenge. It's incredible.
Do you have it on the wedge or are you using alt as?
It's a guider.
No, I mean, do you have the scope on a wedge or are you?
Oh yes, it's on the wedge. Yes.
That's a fork mount, that one. So
Yeah, definitely a wedge.
okay, yeah.
But for some reason, the CCD input has one pin that puts out 18 volts, and I don't want to fry my little guide camera, so I got a breakout RJ12 jack, and just came in today. I'm gonna see where the nasty voltage is and rewire everything to suit.
You might be okay. I'm not saying you are, but Prasad went through this, and I dug up the because he had something that was putting out 5 volts, not 18, because the Meade uses 18, but he was doing something with 5 volts, and I found the wiring diagram for the ZWO guide cameras. I'm not sure what guide camera you're using, but that power pin is a no connect in the camera.
Mhm.
Might want to just get to the manufacturer. You can. I was able to do it through Google. I was able to find the wiring diagram, and he did it, and there was no issue putting voltage on. He had a ZWO guide camera though, so
Yeah, that's what I have. I went. I thought one of the errors I got. It connects to the computer with APT fine, and a couple nights ago, I just tried to guide with it, and I got these errors. And let's see, there's an ASTAP group, like the IO groups, and I posted some questions on there, and I got a lot of help. And in the end, they told me, and I realized it's not an ASTAP problem. So I'm in cloudy nights getting some information there, but I've pretty much got everything except sitting down with my meter and making a new cable. But it's truly a challenge. I did try taking some prime images that night, but without guiding, it was pretty bad.
Yeah. Yeah, those long focal lengths, you really need it.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, good luck. Good luck. We'll be curious
thanks.
to hear more about it in future meetings.
All right.
Perfect.
Does Prasad have a LX?
No, he was doing it for a different purpose. And he was in need of a sort of hooking up a guide camera.
Okay,
So he was doing he wanted to do some deep sky stuff.
yeah,
He reached out to me and he was concerned about I think John, you were on the thread too. He may have reached out to me and John, and I wound up doing some research for him and found out that that there was out of the six pins on that connector, there's 4 used for guiding. One's ground,
right.
the other's a no connect where there's power on the old legacy devices like the LX 200s. There are a lot of things that had power on that 6th pin.
Mhm.
And if it's 1 or 6, I forget which end it's on. But the cameras, they were smart enough to make that a no connect because they probably realized there were some older devices that had power on that pin.
And we'd had the foresight to renumber the pins. It goes 1, 3,
I
1,
know.
4, 2, 5, 3, 6
It's insane.
on RJ12.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, oh
Yeah,
well,
I have an old 10-inch LX 200 from decades ago.
yeah.
And when I was guiding with that, it was the same thing. I had to make cables, it was like, why make it 1 through 6? That's what the pins are.
Did
But
you use
who knows?
ST4?
Yeah, I was using an SDST4 with the old
Okay.
LX 200.
Is that going to be much?
I had one of the Mead wedges.
Right. Yeah.
Weighed 50 pounds. The wedge was like 30 pounds or something.
Hmm.
And I put the 10-inch LX 200 on it. And I used to do deep sky with that with my camera, with film camera.
Huh.
So
I just wonder, I do pulse guiding. Is ST4 going to be much different, you think?
mm-mm.
Not too much. Okay, great.
No, it's the same. In fact, even a lot of the newer things, they're still ST4. They're still using the ST4 protocol. So yeah.
Okay. All right, thanks.
I think you'll be okay. Cool.
Mhm.
Thank you, everyone.
Good to see you guys.
All right.
See everybody
Hey,
Friday.
Take care,
Take
Tom. We're
care.
looking forward to May. We're looking forward to
There you go.
May sharp, I mean.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
I have a rather cavalier approach.
That's one.